welcome to Leap Taken. This is Mika, and here at Leap Taken, I talk about all things witchy, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And today, I wanted to talk a little bit about duality. A lot of us, I know when I started out, in various points of my path, I definitely was kind of faking it until I made it. And sometimes that was a positive and maybe not so much. So let me jump into the negatives and then we'll get into when it worked out. But trying to, or not even just for me in general, but trying to fake it until you make it when it comes to spirituality is really not a good idea. Let's just be clear. It's not a good idea because the reality of it is you're not going to have an authentic connection. Everything's going to be contrived. Everything's going to feel forced. And the problem with that is if you're trying to force some sort of relationship with it, spirit or entity, deity, whatever, you are going to be probably missing out on an opportunity to connect with someone or some entity that is meant for you, that is calling onto you, that wants to reach out to you, that would be beneficial. It would be beneficial to have that relationship, but you're so busy over here trying to force this relationship with Goddess Oshun because you saw Lemonade years ago. So you got to be careful with that sort of stuff because you're missing out possibly on opportunities to connect with something that's more like I said, beneficial to you. That would serve you better to have that relationship. I know I talk about connecting with ancestors. That's sort of the basis of most of my spiritual practices. Ancestor reference, veneration of ancestors. That pretty much comprises most of what I do when I practice my spirituality. If you are someone watching this and you're interested and you set up an ancestor altar, let's say you don't have pictures, you just set up a space that represents ancestors, and you do a lot of the practices that you might have heard about, where you pour out the water in the morning for your ancestors, or you say a prayer, or you try to do some sort of connection, and you've been doing it, but you feel like you're going through the motions, you're kind of faking it, and you're hoping at some point you make it to the point where there's really a connection. Don't do that. Just stop. What I would say instead is just stay open to the concept of ancestor reverence. Stay open. You can keep your altar. There's nothing wrong with that. When you go, if you're not visualizing, you don't see it, you don't hear a person, you're not having dreams, you're not making any sort of you don't feel anything. No matter how much you want it, it's okay. Stop. That's all right. It's okay. It might not be time. I spent a good part of my practice not having that connection, and I didn't try to fake that. I tried making a connection. I tried researching and studying and finding out how to do all this and how to make sense, but when it didn't, I just stopped. And years later, an opportunity came that allowed me to finally make that connection. So I would say just stop. Leave yourself open to the possibilities, but that's about it. It's not working. It's okay. It's not working for you. Don't fake it. Don't keep trying to see something. Don't keep trying to take signs and symbols and make it mean something more, and manipulate those signs and symbols to fit what you want to believe. Don't do that. It's that is faking it. You're making it all up. It's not real. And that connection can be real. Don't feel bad if you don't feel it. It's just not there yet. That's okay. You can stay immersed in the culture of people who do. You can stay immersed in literature and books and things that talk about that because you're educating yourself. It's research. Write things down. It's okay to study it. It really is. Just understand that if that's not working for you, it's not working for you. That's fine. Another thing, and this is again in the topic of spirituality, uh, if you are trying to connect with a specific god or goddess because you have research, you've been studying, and you want to feel that connection, and you're drawn, you legitimately feel drawn, but there's nothing more, happening. Again, you're not having dreams, you're not having visions, you're not having little thought forms pop in your head that you can say this deity gave to you. You're not seeing things or, feathers and symbols and signs and things like that. It's just, it's not, but somehow you still feel drawn. Continue to study, continue to learn, continue to keep notes and, uh, whatever it is that you want to do. If you express yourself through art, continue to put that, venerate them in your art. It's okay to have a kind of a distant connection. Maybe that's as far as that connection is going to go with you and this particular, spirit, or god or goddess. Maybe that's as far as the connection will go indefinitely during this time, or indefinitely. You have to accept that. What you don't want to do is fake more than what it is, and until you make it into something, of what you have in your mind. You may not be connected more than just wanting to have a connection or just a fascination with this particular god or goddess. Just leave it there. There's this idea that we're supposed to have like this really deep connection with anybody that we reach out to, as far as the gods and goddesses. And because I know people talk about this, and there's such a deep, strong connection. There's like, I felt protected, and they talk about their daily connection with them, and I think that's beautiful. I really do. I don't practice that way, and I'm not trying to fake that either. um, I come to, I do have a pantheon of goddesses that I work with. And like I said, I'm introducing, in another video, male, energy, so in the form of a god, into my spiritual practice. But that is not a every moment of the day, every single day type of connection. Nope. I don't, that's not how I practice, and I'm not the end all, the be all, but I'm just trying to give you space to understand that everybody's not doing it like that. And that's okay. And sometimes, again, your connection is just going to be, 6 feet apart, and that's just the way it's going to be. Of you constantly maybe, having fascination and wanting a little bit more, but you're just not going to get more than that connection, and you got to be okay with that. And like I said, don't expend the energy trying to fake something when there could be something over there that you're totally missing because you're focused over here. So that's my suggestion with that. Now, when it comes to spell work and magical workings, let me tell you something. You do not want to fake it until you make it in that arena. So, if I did a spell, which, years ago, this was me, I did do some spell work, and I wanted it to work. And I remember not fully, and this is like early on when I first started doing spell work. I was so obsessed with it, getting it right, saying the right words in order. Obviously, I had a spell from somebody else, so I was trying to say it in the right order with the right inflection in my voice and the right energy, and I was trying to make myself believe, um, because that's what the books say, right? You got to believe in everything that you're saying and your intent. So I was trying to find this intention in myself and make it real in my head, and I would just say it until I believed it. No, the spell didn't work. I don't even remember what it was, but no, the spell didn't work because I didn't really believe I was making myself do this because I wanted this thing to happen. So how do you fix that? Because I want to kind of get into that, because I think that's a lot of people. Whether it you've because a lot of people are spiritual pagans. They're comfortable with the god and goddess energy, but they don't actually do spell work. There's a lot of people who are like that. So let's say you decide you want to get into it. So you have years of big. I don't know what's going on with me, guys. Sorry. You have years of experience of wanting to practice, or being in the pagan spiritual realm. So you're comfortable with that, of understanding duality of, deities and all that sort of stuff, right? However, you didn't do spell work, so now you want to do spell work. Guess what? That's gonna get real interesting. Let me fix my camera. I'm having too much fun. Anyway, that's going to get really interesting because you're going to have, even though you're open minded and you're already there, you actually doing spell work, it's like money spells, love spells. Let's say you want to do something, to keep your job or protection, or you're dealing with anxiety and you want to do some sort of spell work like that. I'm thinking about what's happening right now in the world, right? So it's gonna be a little difficult probably for some people like that to you think you're there until it's time to do that spell, and you want to, we talk about being in alignment with your intention. So you have an intention, you know what you want to do, but when you're doing that spell work and you're lighting the candles, or you're putting the herbs together, you're burning incense, um, or you're doing certain hand gestures, or you're making sigils, or whatever it is that you're doing as part of the spell, something at some point there's the little, subconscious voice is going to come up like, is this even going to work, is this real? um, and if you're not careful, that little voice gets a little bit louder to the point where you're starting to really doubt the whole thing. So now you're like, but I want it to work. So you say, yeah, it's going to work, it's going to work, it's going to work, and you don't really believe it though. You don't believe it. So you finish the spell, it's all done, and you're waiting for it to work, and there's part of you saying, you did all this. What if it works? But it probably won't. You're kind of coming in with that energy, but then there's the other part. Yes, it will. I know it's going to work. I know it's going to work. Um, yeah, you're faking it. You're faking it. You're really split. Your mind's split on this whole spell work and this whole thing. The way I would suggest resolving that again is start with the small stuff. Start with holding, go back, especially for some of us who don't do a lot of magic all the time. Use crystals. Um, I think that's a great gateway. So use crystals, hold on, feel that energy, try to feel energy from that. Um, Use just a simple crystal, and infuse your intention into that crystal of what it is you really want. Forget all the other stuff. Just hold that crystal in your hand and infuse all the, just picture, as best as you can, the things you are really desiring to come into fruition, whatever the spell is that you want the spell, the end result of the spell. Start, just hold that, how you're going to feel. Don't worry about magic, don't worry about all that stuff. Just hold that crystal while you're thinking of that, and do that throughout the day, or when you need to, when things are kind of going left and you really wanted to go right, think of the right and hold that crystal and just infuse that. And so once you're done with that, you're basically putting all that energy into the crystal. Sleep with the crystal under your pillow, keep it on your person. Um, and then, if possible, and this is going to take some time, maybe the next full moon, you put that crystal on a windowsill if you're lucky enough where you could put it outside, and you just, it's being charged, and all that you've infused the energy is being released so it could get charged again. And just think like that. And just be done with it at that point, as best as you can be done with that energy. You put it there, it's going, the moon takes care of it from here. It's going to release what you stored and recharge it. And just have that in your head as best as you can. Don't think about much of anything else. Forget all the candles, the incense, the whatever. Forget all that sort of stuff, and just leave it there. That's a great way to sort of put yourself in alignment with ultimately what you want, but all the other stuff just kind of fades away, and you are still doing, practicing magic. That is still magical workings, a working that you did. The other thing is scripting, writing everything down. Write in a notebook, a designated notebook, what you want. Write your story as if it's presently happening of what you want. Um, you know, and just keep that, don't use that notebook or that pen for anything else. It's just for that. Release anything about magic and all that sort of stuff. You're just writing your story, and I want just really feel what you're writing. Feel the excitement of getting what you want, of the money spell working, of the job coming in, of the stability of keeping your job and keeping your current paycheck, of being able to pay the rent, of meeting someone special, or whatever the spell is for. Just picture that in your head and write your story. Nobody's reading this, so if you don't write very well, don't worry about it. If you spell horrendously, don't worry about it. If you have crappy handwriting, hopefully you can read your own handwriting as long as you can, because you might want to go back and read these when you feel a little out of sorts at times. But write this stuff down and just keep that notebook and keep it hidden, keep it away from anybody else. It's just for you. That's another way to sort of believe. So you're not faking that. That takes too much energy. You're totally engrossed in writing this story. Um, that's not faking it. You do that enough, eventually you can open your mind up to, and this is, for anybody, not just like I said, people who've been practicing a pagan path, or people who maybe have been who just started this path. That's a great way to get in. And by the way, do that with the crystal. um, but yeah, this is a great way to sort of get in the concept of believing that this stuff can really happen for you, that you can really manipulate energy and your benefit to your benefit. You can. We all can. Remember, I'll just say this for some of us who are definitely more left, what they call left brain thinking, more rational thinking, rational minded. There were times that the things that we call science now was magic. There were times, the unexplained, weather, and we didn't understand astronomy and all that. So we understood it, but we called it something else. We called it magic, alchemy, and all that sort of stuff. Those were magical practices. But once it was able to be explained and duplicated, you know, then it was science. So right now, this is something where if you do it and it works for you, and I'm doing it and it works for me, then this is also maybe some sort of science. And maybe you need to kind of wrap your mind around that. We have capabilities as humans, all of us do, that maybe we haven't fully tapped into, and they're not in the science books yet. And that's okay. But it takes time sometimes for, the scientific community to get on board with, some of this woo-woo stuff. But maybe, you can look at it from that perspective if you're having trouble because you're more practical minded, more logical, and, rational minded, which is fine. I mean, I'd like to be as well. But, the stuff I'm talking about, you don't want to fake it, because it's a real experience to be had. And it's great if you can actually experience it, if you actually get to do all the things that you want to do. And then I'm just going to end with a quick story. So, long time ago, I lived in Tennessee. Was I in North Carolina or Tennessee? I can't even remember. I get those places confused. Maybe it was North Carolina. Anyway, I had joined this pagan community I met online, and a few of us were, it was about, I'm going to say 8 or 10 of us were meeting at one of the group's houses, and they had a private backyard. So they had mead, and they were passing around the mead, and they had this really cool drinking vessel. It's something Germanic or whatever. But anyway, to drink the mead out of. And it was really cool. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to have this experience. So it was great until I watched 5 other people drink out of it. And then it was my turn to drink out of it. And I didn't want to drink out the cup because everybody else drank out the cup. And I don't like drinking after people. So I had to fake it until I made it, because I did not want to offend, because everybody's looking at you and there's music playing. Like, there's a whole thing we're doing right now. And I did not want to drink out of the cup. And I didn't want to hesitate. And this was causing me severe anxiety the moment I realized what was happening. Like, the realization, oh shoot, I got to drink out that cup. Everybody's drinking. I'm trying to see what side they're drinking on, so maybe I could turn it around. I did fake the whole experience. So what I did was, yes, I actually drank it. I did try to find a side. I turned it casually, like with my hand. So I was like, oh, thank you. And I'm turning it, and then I drank it. Um, just a little bit. I didn't like, it really just touched my mouth, and I just drank it. So I faked the whole experience. Like, I was totally involved, and I was totally comfortable with the whole thing. Mostly because I didn't, want to offend anybody, and I wanted to have the experience. So, yeah, I faked my way through that experience. And there are times along this path we'll probably have stuff like that, where we're doing that. Like, oh well, I guess I'm in. I've gone to pagan festivals and things like that. And sometimes they'll have like little workshops and things like that. And so I'm sitting there, and I have faked my way through those experiences where I'm listening to these people, and I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm just nodding and I'm being very friendly and I'm participating, but I think the whole thing is doesn't make any sense. I don't think the person knows enough on the subject to really even command an audience and hold a workshop, but I am engaged because I wanted to have the experience and maybe there's something I can learn from it. Um, Even though this person is grossly unqualified to be leading a workshop, but still, or maybe I can infer something, or maybe somebody else in the group knows a little bit more, which by the way does happen. So yeah, I faked my way through those experiences, being very nice and but participating, not just being quiet, but actually participating um, in something that I thought was nonsense. So anyway, yes, so it is possible sometimes. It's not always a negative thing. It's you kind of feel like you have to to get through the experience. But that's really all I have on that subject. Hopefully, this has inspired you to, kind of get out of that fake it till you make it. And if you've been kind of thinking like that and thinking, hey, this is how it's supposed to go. Something's in my eye. This is how it's supposed to go. This is, once I believe, I'll be fine. I'll just, make myself believe until I do. Don't you hate when an eyelash is turned? I miss this new mascara I tried. So I'm about to have raccoon eyes fooling around. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'm Mika. This is Leap Taken. And go ahead and like the video if you've enjoyed the content. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I really appreciate it. And if you have subscribed, again, I appreciate that as well. Thank you. All right. Bye bye.